One day I'm gonna be everything I wanna be. I don't let it get the most of me. One day I'm gonna be free. I wanna be everything I'm gonna be. My future right in front of me. One day I'm gonna be free. I wanna be free. Then let me be free.
From the depths of darkness, a voice emerges. A host with a fire burning in his soul. With a heart steel and a spirit unbroken. He rides on two wheels ready to claim his throne. Amidst the chaos and the thunderous roar, insane wheels rise as a force to be reckoned with. Fueled by the power that only metal can bestow, he takes his stand, refusing to submit. Insane wheels hear his battle cry. Metal and mayhem will never die. Rituals report and paves his way. More legend in the making, day by day.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is a freaking thirsty Thursday morning. Great to see everyone in the chat, man. Let's get it. All right, so we're going to be giving you guys an update on the Pentagon. We got General Kane and, of course, Hegseth are going to be speaking to us this morning here, and we've got it pulled up for you guys. That's going to be the primary thing at the end of the show. But yes, so let's go ahead and just give you guys a rundown of what we're looking at. So we're actually gonna start with the Fed chair. We're gonna hear from the Federal Reserve. Jerome Powell spoke yesterday, and we're gonna have a little bit of a discussion on that first. He says, quote, "I have no intention of leaving" during the Fed investigation. And then we have Trump orders to restart California oil pipeline sparks legal battle. Well, of course it does. California is super commie when it comes down to anything to do with oil. I'm not really sure what their fucking deal is, but it is what it is, right? Iran war, Trump admin weighs major troop deployment to Middle East. Now, I really fucking hope that doesn't happen. I mean, I'm really, really hoping. I'm holding my breath. And then around midnight last night, Trump threatens to, quote unquote, massively blow up world's largest gas field in Iran. And some shit went down, to say the least. Absolutely. And then this morning, Hegseth and the Pentagon over there update on Iran war and, quote, U.S. will not stop. Well, I figured that much already. And then, what's interesting is we have Tulsi Gabbard on Iran and China and Russia talking about this morning. And so there's intelligence officials testify on worldwide threats. Of course, Tulsi Gabbard being DNI makes total sense. So we're going to have a discussion with those things that are happening today. There's not a lot of crazy other shit going on, so we're going to be talking a lot about the Pentagon, basically, this morning. So that's going to be the majority. But great to see everyone in the chat, man. Real quick, let's go ahead and do our call to actions real quick so we can get right into business. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Helps out the show immensely, and it's free to do so. Hit that, double tap that screen if you're on the vertical side, and hit that subscribe button if you guys are new here. This is what we do Monday through Friday, and then, of course, we have members only on Saturday morning. And listen, man, it's a great time. We condense everything into a single hour instead of streaming for 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever amount of hours. We can consolidate everything. Now, talking about money, though, please consider becoming a member starting only at $3.99 a month. We're making sure we're not breaking the bank out there with anybody. But check it out. This is what allows us to be on these airwaves as well as have these lights on. So thank you guys for becoming members and staying members, man. Little side note here, follow my Instagram at BallValveTV, where I post everything behind the scenes of not only my life, but as well as the show, Millennial Food Time, breaking news, as well as the campaign trail, man. Make sure you guys follow me over there. It's Great way to get a hold of me one-on-one. We also have a Discord server for all of you legends. This is what we, we talk about all of these things that we're discussing on the show. As soon as the show's over, we don't like to end the conversation there. We bring it into Discord and we all hang out there. So go into the video description down below and grab that invite link for the Discord. And last but not least, all super chats, super stickers, gifted memberships, and membership signups are, of course, going to be presented live and shouted out onto the show. But if you guys would like to skip that YouTube 30% brutal cut that they take from your hard-earned cash, by the way, we have these platforms scrolling around the screen. Of course, you guys can donate to those at any time, and I will read them out loud just like a super chat, and I get to have 100% of the proceeds. So I very much appreciate you guys. All right, good morning to all you guys. Always appreciate everyone being here. We got Dylan Patterson as well as Jimmy Mac, Virginia Chaos, Papa Penguin. Good morning to you guys. We got Steve Easy in the building as well as Rabbit of Chaos. We got TNT as well as Lappy. Good morning to you guys. We got Miss Lotus as well and Seymour Cannabis. Good morning to you fellas. Let's see. I just called Miss Lotus a fellow. My bad. We got Al Patterson in the chat as well. Big Al. Hopefully you're enjoying your thirsty Thursday morning, as well as Steve Posey. Thank you guys for hanging out. Big shout out to Motobomb Virginia, the Coffee Crew, Carney Vanguard. You guys sent over a raid this morning. I'm very blessed with that, by the way. Thank you for that. I'm very honored to have the support that I do here. Obviously, it's awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and get right into business. Yeah, Miss Lotus. Yeah, that's what happens when I move too quick sometimes. All right, we're going to go ahead and get into Jerome Powell. I have no intention of leaving, he says, during the Fed investigation. So let's go ahead and play that.
And if I may, what happens if there's no Federal Reserve chairman confirmed on May 15th? Would you stay?
What's up, Kerry? Good morning. And this is a great question that, I think this was after he gave his full 45-minute speech or whatever, and then there's questions.
What happens if there's no Federal Reserve chairman confirmed on May 15th? Would you stay on?
So if my successor is not confirmed by the end of my term as chair, I would serve as chair pro tem until he is confirmed. That is what the law calls for. That's what we've done on several occasions, including involving me, and it's what we're going to do in this situation.
We just spat him up.
And while I'm at it, on the question whether I will leave while the investigation is ongoing, I have no intention of leaving the board until the investigation is well and truly over with transparency and finality. And I would refer you to the statement that was in the Fed's brief that you all have seen, and I won't have anything more for you on that. On the question of whether I will then continue to serve as a governor after my term ends and after the investigation is over, I have not made that decision yet, and I will make that decision based on what I think is best for the institution and for the people we serve.
So yesterday, there was an opportunity for there to be a change, and yesterday, the Fed chair, Powell, said that we're going to leave it exactly the same as it is right now. President Trump has demanded lower rates, as it says over there on the very left side, but Federal Reserve leaves interest rates unchanged. Rates remain unchanged at a range of 3.5% to 3.75%.
And you probably were going to set the dominoes off there, Edward. And I'm not going to have any more to say on those issues, by the way.
Thank you very much. Claire Jones from the Financial Times. People have drawn quite a few historical parallels with the current situation. We've seen oil price shocks in the past. Some people have said the first Gulf War and the Fed's response to that, where there was a focus on the growth risks, is the right parallel. To what extent would you agree with that, and to what extent do you think we're in a different place today? Thank you.
It's really hard to say until we see the situation, the actual situation. In some circumstances, that might be the right case. In fact, for example, if we do see the kinds of disinflationary progress that we expect to see due to tariffs that I mentioned, I think it's hard to say, and it will depend to some extent on the size and duration of the effects we're seeing on prices, and it will depend a lot on what we can see in inflation expectations.
You know what's funny about that? That is absolutely facts, Steve Easy, because of the amount of force that Trump was, the pressure that he was putting on Powell. He's, at this point, doing everything opposite of what Trump is asking, of course.
Just one follow-up, if I may, just on the BLS
What's up,
report.
Joseph? Good morning.
That was mentioned briefly there. It doesn't seem from the projections or from the comments you've made today about the unemployment rate and focusing on that your view on the labour market story, to a large part being a supply-side story, has changed, despite the quite negative number in February. Would that be the right take, and was there anyone else in the room who thought?
What's up, Paul Barron? Great to see you in the chat, by the way. And he says, rolling down the highway, listening, appreciate that, by the way.
And that the February jobs report was
Be safe
cause
out
for
there.
concern.
So I think you have to take the two together. You know, in a way, the January report was a positive surprise, and the February report was a negative.
Oh, wow. Big shout out to my man, Virginia Chaos, coming in hot, by the way, on the Cash App saying some freaking money for this Thursday morning, this thirsty Thursday morning. I very much appreciate it. My man, Virginia Chaos, is always making sure that we are stocked up, ready to go. Appreciate that.
Surprise. If you put them together, you get something in the middle, and I think you have to really, as you do, I'm sure, realize there was a strike and there was weather, and that's about 80,000 of the negative effect total on the February report. Notwithstanding that, so what do you see if you take a step back overall? There are a number of indicators that suggest a degree of stability, but the thing that I think good number of people on the committee are concerned about is just the very, very low level of job creation. If you adjust what has been the trend job creation over the past, let's say, 6 months, if you adjust
Yo, what's up? We got Mr. Jack Talcott in the building. Shout out to my man, and hopefully you are enjoying your thirsty Thursday morning. Always appreciate having you in the chat.
For what we think, our staff thinks, is the overstatement due to overcounting. Effectively, there's zero net job creation in the private sector. But actually, that looks like that's about what the economy needs in terms of dealing with very, very low, non-existent, really, growth in the labor force, which, of course, we've never had in our history. So you've got a sort of a zero employment growth equilibrium. Now that's balance, okay, but I would say it does have a feel of downside risk, and it's not kind of a really comfortable balance. So we look at that, we see it, we get it, and I mean everybody understands the arithmetic, and that's you can say the break even is zero.
What's up, Liquored Up with Poncho, my man? Good morning. And we're gonna go ahead and move on. That's enough Powell for me. You know what I mean? Just that was enough. We gave what we needed to there. We're just gonna go ahead and move on. So Trump order to restart California oil pipeline sparks legal battles. Now, that does not surprise me whatsoever. Not a single bit. That's par for the course. So let's go ahead and bring that up, and we'll just go ahead and discuss this quickly here. Let's go ahead.
And welcome back, everyone. It's you live now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Page. Always great to be with you as we continue to bring you some of the day's biggest top stories and headlines.
Pablo on the cell phone today. Appreciate you.
Well, it has finally happened out in
Pops?
California over a
Drive
decade
safe.
in the making as oil has begun to flow from a controversial California pipeline system for the first time in more than a decade following a Trump administration order, despite state officials decrying the move. For more on this,
Real quick, we got my man Pitbull over there across the pond, by the way, over there in the UK. Great to see you. It's morning for us over here in the United States, but for you, it's the afternoon. Great to see you. Good afternoon.
let's go out live right now to Santa Barbara, California. That's where we find Fox News' William Lajeunesse with a breakdown.
Well, Mike, we're talking about 50,000 barrels of new oil coming online, and that is enough to provide fuel for hundreds of thousands of vehicles. Now, California...
50,000 barrels. I mean, that's how much... I mean, I moved 50,000 barrels multiple times with... I mean, the barge that I used to run was 80,000. I had an 80,000 class, I had a 50,000 class, and I had an 120,000 barrel class. So 50,000 barrels, yes, it sounds like a lot, and it can fuel hundreds of thousands. I think that's fucking cap, yo. I mean, yeah, it's gonna fuel a lot of cars, I guess, one time, but it's not that much oil. 50,000 barrels is nothing. You know these ships that come in and out, those big ass tankers? We're talking anywhere from 1.5 to 2.2 million barrels of oil, not 50,000.
California hasn't built a new well since 1969 when they banned offshore drilling. But
what's up,
the
Hardwire?
rigs that you see
Frank,
behind
good
me,
morning.
those are in federal waters. Now you'll see 3 rigs, actually. You'll see 2. There's 3 rigs here that Exxon developed in the 1980s. Now I've been out on those platforms before a 2015 oil spill, which cut off production when the state shut down the sole pipeline.
And yes, it is Steve Easy. He says the ship oil is some crazy thick shit. Yeah, so what we used to deliver to these ships, aside from diesel, because of course we would fuel them up with diesel as well, but we would give them RME 380, RMG 380, RMK 500, and RMK 700. Those were usually about the blends. And it is as fucked as you would imagine it to be. It's definitely bunkers. That's what we call it, but it's fuel oil. You know, yeah.
That brought that oil to shore. Now, on Friday, however, President Trump used his authority
What's up, Are We Not,
to
man? Good morning.
override the state and reopen the pipeline. Now, even though this oil does help keep refineries in California open, and that has been a priority of Governor Newsom, and it also reduces the state's reliance on riskier and dirtier foreign oil coming in thousands of miles from, you know, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, from overseas. Governor Newsom opposes the opening, saying California will not allow Trump's
What's up, Prez? Good morning.
political stunt to put California communities and environment at risk. So last year, some Hollywood celebrities led a rally against this project, and they dismissed claims by the new owner that the pipeline was safe.
They'll tell lies up the kazoo in order to justify drilling for oil at a time when we shouldn't be doing
Why should we not be drilling for oil?
that.
It's got
Why did she say we should not? We're in a time that we shouldn't be drilling for oil. Why?
Justify drilling for oil at a time when we shouldn't be doing that.
it's got
Is it because you don't want and you think we shouldn't be doing that? Like, what's the actual objective claim here?
1 inch wall thickness in the pipe, and the Trans-Alaska pipeline's only 5 inch. So 1 inch wall of steel, it's tremendously strong, and it's in great shape, and we're already flowing oil through it at a rate of 50,000 barrels a day.
Yeah, that's a lot of cars, Mike. So California plans on challenging the president's ruling, or basically using the Defense Protection Act to open this pipeline, because there are so many military bases here in California.
What's up, Roger? My man, good morning to you. Great to see you in the chat. Hopefully you're enjoying your Thirsty Thursday morning so far.
Yeah, about 34. Others are in Arizona and Nevada that also depend on California refineries for their oil, using the Defense Production Act
What's up, Dirty?
to reopen that pipeline. California is going to challenge that by saying that the pipeline is partially encroaching on state land, and therefore the state has jurisdiction. So a federal judge may ultimately decide whether the oil continues to flow or not. Mike?
And William, does
So
this
a
move by
judge
the
has to
Trump
determine that now?
administration move the needle?
I just don't understand that shit. Like, why do they fucking oppose I mean, oil, whether you like it or not, it is a humongous fuel to the world. I mean, literally. I mean, but on an economic level, why would you be opposed? I just don't. What? You're afraid that it's going to, like what? Like, I just don't understand.
all for places like, of course, California, but also
I'm gonna pull up a
Arizona,
map
like
real
you
quick. I gotta show you guys
mentioned,
something.
to maybe bring those prices down just a little bit at the gas pumps.
You know, the governor, well, on one hand, you say supply demand, right? You put in more supply demand, you know, is mediated, and prices technically go down. The governor's going to argue that the world.
Okay, real quick. Let me go ahead and just bring your attention to this real quick, right? Let's just say they're like, oh, well, we're scared of a pipeline bursting or some bullshit, whatever. Here's our gas and hazardous liquids pipelines underneath the United States. Okay, so the blue is natural gas and gas transmission, and then you have the red lines, which is hazardous liquids, which is like the heavy crude and stuff like that. Whatever. This is where it's being transferred in the United States. I mean, we're talking like 80. It says right here, there are approximately 85,000 miles of crude oil lines in the U.S. that connect regional markets. Wow. That's insane. All right, so I just wanted to show you guys that. So I really just don't understand, like, the argument. But, all right, here we go. Back to this.
World price of oil is what it is, and it's going to keep prices high. I think it is fair to say, however, that this, in fact, I know, that this oil helps keep refineries California used to have 42 refineries. Now we're down to 7, right? And they're closing because there's not enough oil in the pipelines to keep the refineries open. So by putting more oil in the system, they've already said it will keep those refineries open. That's what the governor of Arizona and Nevada have been barking for, because they're dependent on what California does. California is now importing gasoline from Korea. It imports 60% of its oil from overseas. So many people will go, wait a minute, there's a lot of oil right here. There's a lot of oil in this state, and yet...
By the way, good morning, Papa Penguin. What you said up here about the climate change arguments aren't about science. They're about politics. Fear generates voters. If we don't stop oil in the world, is going to end tomorrow, right? If we stop oil everywhere, or everyone will starve. That's right, and that's facts. We will all starve, and pretty much, I would think, without oil in our life, I think we would all kind of die.
The state, which was at one time one of the top oil-producing states in the country, now, because it's run by Democrats, they don't want to put any oil at all because they believe in, the climate change argument, and they want to basically get rid of it by 2035, gas-powered vehicles. So as a consequence, there's no oil in the system to keep those refineries open. That's what the governors are arguing in those 2 states.
There we go.
Right.
William Lajeunesse.
So, by the way, do you know that number was way higher? That number was way higher under Biden, for an example. Same thing with Obama. Yeah, it's very weird, the arguments they use against oil, which doesn't make any logical sense. Anyways, we're going to talk about the Iran war here. Trump administration weighs major troop deployment to Middle East. Now, I'm really hope that we don't do that. I'm crossing my fingers, but here we go. Let's go ahead and bring this up and discuss it.
Okay, you're watching live now. I'm Austin Westfall. Reuters' Phil Stewart with this, saying the Trump administration is considering deploying thousands of additional troops to the Middle East as the military prepares options for the possible next phase of the Iran war. One option, Reuters says, for securing the Strait of Hormuz includes deploying troops to Iranian shores. This is something that we're going to have to track as the days go on here. Retired Marine Intelligence Officer, National Security Analyst, and the...
That is hilarious, Big Dan. Great to see you in the chat, bro.
Host of the Strat Podcast.
Good morning.
Hal Kempfer here to discuss what might the U.S. be pursuing with these discussions, Hal?
Well, I'm kind of looking at this. I don't want to jump to conclusions. Okay, everybody's saying, "Oh my gosh, it's going to be a replay of OIF or Desert Storm. We're going to have troops doing this stuff." What it might.
By the way, this is Hal Kempfer, and I really, out of all people in the news world, this guy really does come at it from an objective standpoint. This is what I really do appreciate about this man. He's got a lot of knowledge in the inside, so.
Might be is we're looking at what comes after. If there is a regime change, how do we secure certain areas, certain facilities? There's a lot of things that have to happen. We have to go in there and we'd have to look at any site that had nuclear weapons. Obviously, we'd want to reduce any site that had ballistic missiles, drones, anything along that line. And there really can't replace the fact that at that point, we'd want to have boots on the ground, so to speak. We'd want folks that are literally going down to those tunnels, those underground facilities, seeing what they had, and really.
Well, I don't want fucking that shit.
Dealing with it, whether it's be destroying it or confiscating it or whatever.
I think he's talking about it from just military, objectively a military ordeal. If this was our war, then sure.
Whatever it is. And so that's very possible. Now, as far as shores go, that's a big issue, and that's kind of implying the Strait of Hormuz and looking at, what if, and if there's regime change, we may want to put troops ashore over in someplace like I would say like Bandar Abbas or something like that. We may consider that, but I wouldn't say to go storming ashore and take it by force, but obviously to be an occupation force there, provide a certain measure of security and deal with other latent anti-ship capabilities that rogue elements may have hidden up in the hills and along the shoreline. So that might be something that they're thinking of later on that's a distinct possibility. And then,
By the way, we have over 250 people in here between both of the live streams here. Make sure you guys double tap that screen if you're on the vertical side. Hit that like button if you're on the horizontal. Listen, man, you guys don't have to like all the craziness that's happening around the world, but you guys can like it for me and what we do here. So thank you guys for that.
again, it also could be we're just looking at rotating some folks out that have been over there for a long time too. You know, sometimes these things get kind of rolling. It's like, oh my gosh, we're going to deploy all these troops, and you find out, well, there happens to be a couple of units that have been over there for 6 months or 8 months. It's time for them to rotate back home. So rather than being a huge plus up, it's actually more of a
What's up, Charlie? Good morning to you. Great to see you in the chat. Happy Thirsty Thursday.
routine rotation of troops.
Another story breaking in the last couple hours here. The Washington Post says that the Pentagon, Hal, is asking the White House to approve a more than $200 billion request to Congress to fund the war in Iran. If the first 6 days of the war, I was looking, the first 6 days of the war cost $11 billion, Hal. So if 6 days of war cost $11 billion, what does a $200 billion request tell us?
Well, obviously, that tells you we're going to be there for a while.
Man.
Part of it, too,
Yeah, that's terrible. Listen to that again. So the Pentagon asked the White House to approve a more than $200 billion request to fund the war in Iran. Oh, fuck.
$1 billion. What does a $200 billion request tell us?
Well, obviously, that tells you we're going to be there for a while. Part of it, too, is it's $200 billion earmarked for the war in Iran. But as you know, we've used a lot of high value, high cost, I would say low density weapons like air defense missiles, Patriot missiles, things like that. These cost a lot of money. We've also used a lot of other air assets. We've been putting a lot of drones into that area. We've been doing a lot of different things. So what I'm thinking is that when they're talking about that, they're talking about $200 billion earmarked for the war on Iran or the war in Iran, but also to replenish our war reserves and plus up our war reserves should something else happen somewhere else. And that somewhere else I'm looking at is China right now, which where there's a lot of activity. Just kicked up big time Sunday. There has been a lull in provocative air activity by the People's Republic of China around Taiwan. And now Sunday, we started to see this big surge of activity. We're not quite sure why there was a lull. We're not quite sure why they surged again. But we do know that China is certainly looking very closely at what's happening in the Persian Gulf. They've for years and years and years, they've been talking about they want to repatriate Taiwan, which includes militarily repatriating Taiwan to the PRC. And repatriation is another way of saying invasion, and that's it might push up their timeline if they think that the U.S. is unable to respond to whatever they do in the Pacific.
So, Hal, we've been talking about the Strait of Hormuz so often, and we've been talking about oil prices just about every step of this war. Today, we heard that the South Pars gas field was struck. It's the largest gas field in the world, and it was struck earlier today, and the Qataris are saying that it was the Israelis that struck this oil field.
It was the United States that struck the oil field, I believe. From the reports that I've read, it was the United States.
The AP says the United States knew Israel wanted to hit the gas field, but did not take part in it. Why would the U.S. want to be hands-off with striking something like that?
Well, it's escalating the war to a new dimension. Obviously, if you're hitting the gas fields, you're hitting the oil facilities, now you're kind of punishing Iran as a nation, because even if there's regime change, the new regime is going to have to figure out ways to pay for things, and they want to sell gas and oil. And so when you take that out, there's a feeling that that's a little bit punitive on Iran as a nation, holding the entire population, the nation of Iran, responsible for what the regime's done. Of course, one could simply argue, well, they are kind of responsible. It's their government, just like we're responsible for what our government does. And
I don't know that for certainty, by the way. It's just reports that I had read. Now, we're going to get an update from the Pentagon, and then, of course, I'll continue my investigations of it. But it may be Israel that struck it. I don't know.
That said, we have been taking a little bit more, it may sound strange, a little more nuanced view that we were looking at this militarily to do things that would basically destroy the pillars that support the current regime and open the door for another regime, maybe a popular overthrow and a popular revolt, putting another type of government into place. So that's why we would be a little reluctant to do that. The other thing, too, is that Pars field, this gets into the history of the region. You know, I mean, the oil fields, the gas fields formed. This was, you know, a long time ago. There was no Persian Gulf there. And that particular geological formation runs from Iran under the Persian Gulf into Qatar. And
Qatar.
You see the Qatars
Qatar.
has also been attacked by Iran.
Not Qatar.
Correspondingly, taking out some of its liquefied natural gas production, at least that's what it appears, with their natural gas field. And for Qatar, natural gas, liquefied natural gas is a huge, huge revenue source. I believe it's the biggest source of revenue for the country. So they got hit, and the fear is you're going to end up with, it's bad enough that the Iranians are attacking some of the oil and gas facilities in the UAE, Qatar, and of course targeting in Saudi Arabia like they just recently did today. But what you don't want to see is this turn into a back and forth thing where they're hitting each other's gas and oil fields, because at the end of the day, that's going to damage the global economy.
Yeah, that's where it really is going to be taking it to a different level. Exactly like Hal Kempfer said there. When you start striking energy or stuff down to, anything regarding oil, it's a whole different level of warfare now.
Yeah, so Macron,
I want to see this part.
Saying this, the French president, saying, I have just...
This is coming out from the French president.
...spoken with the Emir of Qatar and President Trump following the strikes that hit gas production facilities in Iran and Qatar today. It is in our common interest to implement without delay a moratorium on strikes targeting civilian infrastructure, particularly energy and water supply facilities, civilian populations and their essential needs, as well as the security of energy supplies, must be protected from military escalation. Hal, energy and water supply facilities are supposed to be off limits in war, aren't they?
Well, generally speaking, yes. There is a saying, in the law of war that a target is a target is a target. And as lawyers would say, it depends on what they're using it for. And it depends on whether you need to take it out for military purposes, if it has some other thing. If it's just to target civilians and to harm the civilians, to hold the civilians, responsible, if you will, using them as kind of a shield, that the regime's using them as a shield, or that they're aiming for civilians in order to do stuff. This is the sort of stuff that Russia does against the...
that's unacceptable. We got to get the likes up, yo. Make sure you guys double tap that screen if you guys are on the vertical side. You guys don't have to like all this crazy shit, but you guys can like it for me and what we do here. So
Ukrainians,
thank you guys.
they're not supposed to do that. And I would say particularly energy is absolutely important, but there's a very energy intensive sector in the Persian Gulf states, and that's called water purification. There's no great river systems and freshwater sources that feed fresh water to these capitals like Doha and Dubai and the others.
I can only imagine that fresh water would be a struggle in the Middle East.
They have these massive desalination capabilities. For the most part, these are using ROPU, reverse osmosis processing units, very large scale, on a scale that you just normally don't see. And if they are taken out, that could cause massive water deprivation in these very large urban centers, which are...
Right, which then would become a humanitarian problem.
International crossroads and everything else. So if the energy is taken out, or the water is taken out, or both are taken out, that could take a very, very long time to get that stuff repaired, and you actually would end up with quite the humanitarian crisis.
Right.
If they can't.
That's exactly right, Hal Kempfer.
And you actually would end up with quite the humanitarian crisis if they can't get fresh water into these cities. So that's why you see them explicitly listed there. That's why Macron talked about what was going on there. was because of the big effects that going after water purification and water facilities, water purification,
or
and energy
right.
could have in those particular cities.
Yeah, that's no doubt. Let's see what they're talking about here.
You and I were talking about Israel's decapitation campaign yesterday after the IDF killed 2 more top Iranian leaders. Well, today we learned of another. Iranian state television confirming that Israel killed Iranian intelligence minister Ismail Khatib.
Oh, wow.
What's the significance of Khatib's death, Hal? And what do we know about how strong Iran's intelligence capabilities actually are?
Well, Khatib was, he'd been around. He was part of, what they call some call the OG of Iran, or the revolution. He was one of the original revolutionaries, if you will. He goes back, 79. He was one of the guys that was very much involved with setting up the theocratic autocracy that you see. Very trusted, very well known, had been working at the highest levels for a very long time. And what Israel is pursuing is this decapitation thing that they use so successfully with Hezbollah over in Lebanon, and then so successfully with Hamas in Gaza.
Yeah, that's true. But then, just like anything, it rebuilds. It always will. It's not a long-term solution. It's a short-term solution. And then 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years later, then it reemerges,
Which is
Hamas just is starting to show back up in Gaza right now. They're taking back control in Gaza as all Israel's, their whole focus is now at Iran and not necessarily there at Gaza right now. So just like anything, things reemerge.
Just keep taking out these leaders, and you keep taking out these leaders, and eventually other people come in. But what it does is it causes a lot of questions within the ranks of the organization, which is all of a sudden they're seeing a bunch of new faces that were never in charge before. And those new people in charge are replacing people who were there a very long time. So very difficult to establish yourself quickly in an organization that's not used to having a lot of change like that. And it causes a lot of friction, disruption, difficulties with decision-making, working.
What's up, Dancing? Good morning. Hopefully you're enjoying your morning as well. Great to see you in the
with
chat.
Other organizations. And so that's what they're doing. And they're going right down the list. They took down, obviously with Basij, they took out their commander, Soleimani. That was a huge one, obviously.
Virginia Chaos. I've actually talked to him before on Instagram. Me and him were FaceTiming each other or whatever. We were having a full-blown conversation. I actually told him about how I do this show and everything, and he was like, man, that's awesome. That's exactly what we need in this game. You know what I mean? So, love that shit.
And we don't know what the status is of the supreme leader, Mustafa Khomeini. That's a big question. Nobody's seen from him. Nobody's heard from him. Only thing we have is something that was attributed to him that was read on television, which may or may not have been actually authored by him. That's a big question. So, you just kind of keep working your way down the list. Laranjani, who had been there forever, who was kind of the basically the decision maker, if you will, in light of all the changes that had taken place there. And he's gone. So to take out, the Minister of Intelligence, particularly, Khatib in this way, it just further puts the regime in disarray.
Yeah. Let's see if we have any other updates on this, like any other big posts or anything. All right. Excuse me. We're going to go ahead and move on. We got to. Trump threatens to, quote unquote, massively blow up world's largest gas field in Iran. So this is where I believe that this is where one of the reports I was like, oh, well, it must be U.S. that did it, but maybe not. Maybe it was just a threat. I mean, we know how Trump is with threats. He loves to threaten and then not do it. You know what I mean?
Welcome back to Live Now.
Which is actually kind of powerful in itself, objectively speaking.
From Fox, I'm Shauna Kalafi, and we are continuing to track the latest developments out of the Middle East. We have a live look right now in Beirut as the sun is rising there on Thursday morning there locally. And we are also following Israel's strikes. They are now saying they eliminated Iran's intelligence minister, the third top official killed in the past 2 days. Iran now retaliating, targeting Israel with additional strikes. Fox's Mike Tobin.
Well, just like Bibi Netanyahu said with his little video with Mike Huckabee like 2 days ago. He's like, yeah, you see, Netanyahu was like, yeah, you see this hole punch card? You see who we've eliminated here, and you see who's remaining, you know, kind of thing. And he goes, I'm going to get them all. It's like, oh, shit, this motherfucker.
And has the latest from Tel Aviv.
Hundreds of mourners fill the streets of Tehran for the funeral of top Iranian security leader Ali Larijani. They shout death to America and death to Israel as Israel continues to target the regime's remaining leadership. Iran confirms its intelligence minister Esmail Khatib was killed in an overnight strike, and Israel promises more.
Israel's policy is clear and unequivocal. No one in Iran has immunity. Everyone is a target.
Iran also drawing blood, but civilian blood. Fire burns in the aftermath of overnight missile strikes that hit residential areas near Tel Aviv. The common weapon in recent days is the cluster bomb. It opens midair and...
Yes, those cluster bombs, they're brutal. You can hit a lot of shit with that. You don't necessarily need to blow up an entire building. But when you pepper shit like this, I mean, the amount of people that get fucked up from them, I mean, it's just a lot of damage.
Rains down dozens of bomblets, which get past air defenses and into neighborhoods. A strike near Tel Aviv injured several and killed a couple in their 70s.
That is one of the evidences of this harsh reality that we have here. Actually dealing with it every day and every night. Sleeping is a privilege.
Iran also followed through on threats to attack other Gulf states' oil infrastructure. After an Israeli airstrike on the world's largest gas field, Qatar says its main gas facility was hit by Iranian missiles. Qatar condemned the strikes as a threat to global energy security and a direct threat to...
Wait, I need to hear that part again.
Strike on the world's largest gas field. Qatar said...
I didn't go back quick enough.
Sleeping is a privilege.
Iran also followed through on threats to attack other Gulf states' oil infrastructure after an Israeli airstrike on the world's largest gas field.
So it was an Israeli airstrike that took out the gas field. Wow. Okay. So, hey, there's the information right there. So the United States did not do it, according to this, as far as we know. I was waiting to hear at least someone kind of making a taking responsibility claim here.
Qatar says its main gas facility was hit by Iranian missiles. Qatar condemned the strikes as a threat to global energy security and a direct threat to its national security. Meanwhile, members of Iran's national women's soccer team returned home.
Yes, and that's very true, Jimmy Mack. And some countries recognize it and some do not. For instance, the United States, we use them. So you can't even really be if we use them, well then shit, you know. But yes, they are considered by a large amount of countries that they are a war crime.
Some of the players sought asylum while playing in Australia. 6 players and a staff member were initially granted humanitarian visas, but only 2 players remain behind. With Iran promising to fire on the oil infrastructure of its Gulf neighbors, Saudi Arabia says it intercepted 5 drones headed toward its energy facilities, 4 ballistic missiles launched toward Riyadh. In Tel Aviv, Israel, Mike Tobin, Fox News.
What's up? Shout out to the UK. Great to see you in the chat, by the way, Rex. Hopefully you're enjoying your afternoon. Over here in the United States, it is still morning.
So again, today, Iranian state media saying that Israel attacked Iran's South Pars natural gas field. This is part of the world's largest gas resource and a pillar of Iran's energy supply. Now, a source told the Associated Press that the U.S. did know about this Israeli strike on that Iranian gas field, but did not take part. However, President Trump putting out this statement tonight on Truth Social, saying that the U.S. did not know about it. He said, quote, Israel, out of anger for what has taken place in the Middle East, has violently lashed out at a major facility known as South Pars gas field.
Wow, I didn't see this post, by the way, yet. Otherwise, I would have known kind of the position that Trump is going to take on it, but I hadn't even seen this.
In Iran, a relatively small section of the whole has been hit. The United States knew nothing about this particular attack, and the country of Qatar was in no way, shape, or form involved with it, nor did it have any idea that it was going to happen. Unfortunately, Iran did not know this or any of the pertinent facts pertaining to the South Pars attack, and unjustifiably and unfairly attacked a portion of Qatar's LNG gas facility. No more attacks will be made by Israel pertaining to this extremely important and valuable South Pars field, unless Iran unwisely decides to attack a very innocent, in this case, Qatar, in which instance the United States of America, with or without the help or consent of Israel, will massively blow up the entire
Consent of Israel. Motherfuckers, they should be coming to us for consent, not the other way around. This shit is fucking gay.
Why are you gay?
Of South Pars gas field at an amount of strength and power that Iran has never seen or witnessed before. I do not want to authorize this level of violence and destruction because of the long-term implications it will have on the future of Iran. But if Qatar's LNG is attacked again, I will not hesitate to do so. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Trump putting that out on Truth Social in the last hour or so, talking about that Israeli strike on the Iranian gas field.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on into the main section of what we're going to be discussing this morning is the Pentagon. Hegseth and Pentagon update on Iran war. Quote, U.S. will not stop. Well, that is not surprising to hear. All right, let's go ahead and bring this up. And we'll go ahead and discuss. And we're going to, because this is a very lengthy segment, I have to speed this up. They're going to sound like they took Adderall this morning.
Well, good morning. Yesterday at Dover Air Force Base, President Trump, the chairman, and I stood in solemn silence as heroes came home. Flag-draped caskets, we honored them. We grieved with their families, and we listened. What I heard through tears, through hugs, through strength, and through unbreakable resolve was the same from family after family.
Facts,
they
Steve.
Said, finish this. Honor their sacrifice. Do not waver. Do not stop until the job is done. My response, along with that of the president, was simple. Of course, we will finish this. We will honor their sacrifice. Their sacrifice only steals our commitment. I wear this bracelet. Staff Sergeant Jorge Oliveira, he was one of my sergeants, or one of my specialists in Guantanamo Bay. He deployed later to Afghanistan, where he was killed on 19 October 2011. Killed 10 years after 9/11, 15 years ago. He was one of the 1%, the best of America. Not just a guardsman, but a law enforcement officer back home, a family man. I remember him every day, just like so many other men and women of our generation and previous generations who wear bracelets like this. Just as we will always remember those lost in this conflict. Their names are now etched into our mission and into the soul of a grateful nation. I stand here today speaking to you, the American people, not through filters, not through reporters, not through cable news spin. A dishonest and anti-Trump press will stop at nothing. We know this at this point. To downplay progress, amplify every cost, and call into question every step. Sadly, TDS is in their DNA. They want President Trump to fail.
Bruh.
The American people know better. Yes, there are...
The amount of TDS is insane, but you got to think that there is a lot of objective wrongs that Trump is doing right now, you know, and so it's not just TDS right now. It has been like that in the past, I mean, for a long time. But, you know, there are some notable things that, like, people in his own party don't agree with, you know.
Reporters in front of me, but they are not our audience today. It's you, the good decent, patriotic American people. You, the hardworking, tax-paying, God-fearing American patriots. The media here, not all of it, but much of it, wants you to think, just 19 days into this conflict, that we're somehow spinning toward an endless abyss or a forever war or a quagmire. Nothing could be further from the truth. Hear it from me, one of hundreds of thousands who...
What's up, my man Cal up there in Canada? Great to see you in the chat, bro. Good morning. Hopefully you're enjoying your morning so far.
Fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, who watched previous foolish politicians like Bush, Obama, and Biden squander American credibility. This is not those wars. President Trump knows better. Epic Fury is different. It's laser-focused. It's decisive. Our objectives, given directly from our America First president, remain exactly what they were on day one. These are not the media's objectives, not Iran's objectives, not new objectives, our objectives. Unchanged, on target, and on plan. Destroy missiles, launchers, and Iran's defense industrial base so they cannot rebuild. Destroy their navy, and Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. Our objectives from day one. To the patriotic members of the press, nobody can deliver perfection in wartime. This building knows that more than anyone. But report the reality. We're winning decisively and on our terms. Iran is a vast country, and just like Hamas and their tunnels, they've poured any aid, any economic development, humanitarian aid into tunnels and rockets. That's what they did with Hamas. Iran has funneled decades of state resources, not to their people, but into missiles and drones and proxies and buried facilities. But we are hunting them down.
Yeah, well, when we own the air, they have no option other than to go down. You know, that's history will always tell you that.
Methodically, ruthlessly, and overwhelmingly, like no other military in the world can do. And the results speak for themselves. To date, we've struck over 7,000 targets across Iran and its military infrastructure. That is not incremental. That is overwhelming force applied with precision. And again, today...
I'd have to really think about that, Pitbull.
Today will be the largest strike package yet, just like yesterday was. As I've said from day one, our capabilities continue to build. Iran's continue to degrade. We're hunting and striking death and destruction from above. Iran's air defenses flattened.
I think I'm going to get Hangry's chicken, my man. That's what I'm going to get down with some Nashville-type chicken.
Iran's defense industrial base, the factories, the production lines that feed their missile and drone programs being overwhelmingly destroyed. We've hit hundreds of their defense industrial bases directly. Their ability to manufacture new ballistic missiles has probably taken the hardest hit of all. Ballistic missile attacks against our forces, down 90% since the start of the conflict. Same with one-way attack UAVs. Think kamikaze drones, down 90%. Now, the Iranians will still shoot, we know that, but they would shoot a lot more if they could, but they can't. The last job anyone in the world wants right now?
Real quick, just a little side note. Because of the length of today, we are not going to be able to play Tulsi Gabbard this morning on her whole, the intelligence officials testify on worldwide threats. We're not going to be able to listen to that because that part is 41 minutes long, and we're not going to be able to do that. So just a little side note, we're going to end off with this today, but this is lengthy. We still got a little while to go, but
Senior leader for the IRGC, or Besiege. Temp jobs.
What's up, 2-4? Good morning.
And to borrow a page from Admiral Ernest King in World War II, we've decided to share the ocean with Iran. We've given them the bottom half. We've damaged or sunk over 120 of their Navy ships, with battle damage assessments pending for many more. See, oftentimes we have to wait a few days on battle damage assessment to get the real number. Their surface fleet is no longer a factor. Their submarines, they once had 11.
Listen, Steve Easy, little side note here. We make jokes that I pay the mortgage over there. You know what I mean? So
are gone. Their military ports are crippled. Iran has terrorized
What's up, Stacks? Good
the
morning.
United States and our interests for 47 years. Their core industries, not steel or agriculture or tourism, their core industries are state-sponsored terrorism, proxy militias, underground networks, ballistic missiles, and a violent, messianic, Islamist ideology chasing some sort of apocalyptic endgame. A regime like that, refusing to abandon its nuclear ambitions, is not just a regional problem. It's a direct threat to America,
What's up, extra surprise?
to freedom, and to civilization. The world, the Middle East, our ungrateful allies in Europe, even segments of our own press, should be saying one thing to President Trump. Thank you. Thank you for the courage to stop this terror state from holding the world hostage with missiles while building or attempting to build a nuclear bomb. Thank you for doing the work of the free world. Yesterday's ceremony reminded us why we fight. Not for nation building or democracy promotion, but to crush direct threats to America, Americans, and our interests. We fight to win, and we are winning on our terms, following our objectives. My 13-year-old son popped into my office last night while I was editing these remarks. He asked about the war and the families I met at Dover. And I looked at him and I said, they died for you, son, so that your generation doesn't have to deal with a nuclear Iran. It's the truth, and they did. So to the families who said, finish this, we will. And I say the same to every American who wants peace through strength. May Almighty God continue to bless our troops in this fight. And again, to the American people, please pray for them every day, on bended knee, with your family, in your schools, in your churches, in the name of Jesus Christ. To the troops, keep going, and Godspeed. Over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and thank you all for being here. I also had the honor yesterday, as the Secretary said, of traveling up to Dover with the President to welcome home our 6 fallen. It was an honor and a privilege for me to be there and to say thank you to their families, and I want to mention their names this morning. From the 6th Aerial Refueling Wing out of MacDill Air Force Base, Florida, but stationed as part of an active associate unit at Birmingham, Alabama, Major Alex Klenner, John Alex Klenner, Major Ariana Sabino, she was posthumously promoted from captain to major, and Technical Sergeant Ashley Pruitt, the boom operator on that crew. From the 121st Aerial Fueling Ring, Ohio Air National Guard out of Rickenbacker Air National Guard Base in Columbus, Ohio, Captain Seth Koval, Captain Curtis Anks, and now Master Sergeant Tyler Simmons, who was also promoted in the boom operator on that crew. To a person and every family member I spoke with yesterday, they all shared that their family members loved serving, they loved being part of a great team and a crew, and they loved airplanes and aviation. Our nation's tanker crews really are unsung heroes, incredible warriors who put their lives on the line so we can continue to take the fight to an enemy. I've personally witnessed their courage and tenacity many times, from the morning of September 11th, where they answered my call for some help, to the skies over foreign countries where they've come forward out of their safe tanker track to give me gas when I simply could not leave a ground force that was engaged in a firefight. They've answered the call and come forward time and time and time again. I'm filled with incredible pride and gratitude for all that the tanker crews do, our pilots, our boom operators, and the maintainers. And to the families of our 6 fallen, know that we share your grief. Our nation will never forget their sacrifice, and we will never forget their names. Our entire joint force mourns with you today, and will continue to remember their incredible gift of a great example for all of us. Now let me turn to an operations update. U.S. CENTCOM remains on plan to achieve our military objectives and remain unrelenting in our pursuit of Iranian missile capabilities, UAV capabilities, and their Navy, and as the Secretary said, their industrial base. Each day we continue to attack deeper into Iranian territory. As reported by U.S. Central Command yesterday, the U.S. military dropped 5,000-pound penetrator weapons into underground storage facilities, storing coastal defense cruise missiles and other support equipment. These weapons are bespokely designed to get through concrete and/or rocks and function after penetrating those barriers. We continue to hunt and kill mine storage facilities and naval ammunition depots. We continue to hunt and kill afloat assets, including more than 120 vessels and 44 mine layers, and the pressure will continue. We're flying further to the east now and penetrating deeper into Iranian airspace to hunt and kill one-way attack garrisons, destroying Iran's ability to project power outside of its borders. The A-10 Warthog is now in the fight across the southern flank and is hunting and killing fast attack watercraft in the Straits of Hormuz. In addition, AH-64 Apaches have joined the fight on the southern flank, and they continue to work on the southern side, and that includes some of our allies who are using Apaches to handle one-way attack drones. In Iraq, AH-64s have been striking against Iranian-aligned militia groups to make sure that we suppress any threat in Iraq against U.S. forces or U.S. interests. And we remain focused on pursuit of any platform that Iran could field to harm Americans or our partners. Last Friday, Admiral Cooper and the CENTCOM team conducted precision strikes against more than 90 targets on Karg Island, which included all of their military-only infrastructure, which included air defenses, naval base, mine storage, and deployment facilities. And as the Secretary mentioned, we continue to strike against Iran's defense industrial base and will continue to do so. Today, I want to continue my theme of talking about members of our incredible joint force. Today, I want to talk about some exceptional airmen who are engaged in the fight daily. United States Air Force Reserve, and Air National Guard crews within our bomber force, the B-1s, B-2s, and B-52s, and the airmen on the ground who maintain and load these weapon systems. They are the backbone of America's long-range strike capability, and their contributions to Epic Fury have been decisive. Assigned to STRATCOM under Admiral Rich Correll and supported by TRANSCOM, the tanker force that we've talked about, under the command of General Randall Reed, every mission is designed to achieve overwhelming outcomes on behalf of the United States and our allies. Last weekend, I had the chance to go out and see some of our deployed bomber forces, the B-1 and B-52 crews, and I had a chance to sit down with some young aviators and maintainers and ask them, how do you feel? Tell me about your typical day. And these are crews comprised of between 2 and 5 airmen, 2 on the B-2s, 5 on the B-52s, and 4 in the B-1s out there. Some of these Americans are in their early or mid-20s, and we give them the gift of this incredible responsibility, hundreds of thousands of pounds of aircraft, and they take off and go do our work as required. Their mission actually begins the day prior when they're given a target or a bunch of targets, and they begin to study those targets, look at what are the effects required, what are the weapons required to get there, how will we program these weapons, what is the weather, what is the tanker flow. It's an incredibly complex problem that we give each and every one of these crews, and they work it over the period of 24 hours prior, get some rest, and then step out the door to go fly. The last thing they do is they check all of their equipment, their oxygen mask, survival gear, load pistols, and get ready to go. They crank the jets about an hour prior to takeoff and then launch into the daylight, doing their pre-flight checks, and as the kids say, lock in and prepare to go to war, sometimes on a long and stressful journey. During the flight, they're surrounded by technology and capabilities, and they'll do multiple aerial refueling efforts across tankers on the way to the AOR, area of responsibility, either coming from the States or coming from a forward deployed basing. And I will tell you, as a fighter pilot, getting gas is a lot easier in an F-16 than it is in a B-1, B-2, or a B-52, where you are handling this airplane. It is a physical thing, unlike a fighter that's a lot easier. And they stay on that boom for sometimes up to 30 minutes, taking hundreds of thousands of pounds of gas. It is a physical, demanding thing to take gas, and they do it multiple times on the way there, and they do it multiple times on the way home. As they enter the...
Yeah, that's got to be one of the most dangerous operations. I mean, just having to refuel nonstop like that, it's just brutal.
The operating area, they bring the entirety of America's joint force together to go do the things that we've tasked them to do, to put bombs on time, on target, with the proper effects. And I know they're feeling a range of emotions, but the thing the American people should take away from it is they're filled with a focus that is incredibly impressive. And they have fear, of course, but their bigger fear is, dear God, please don't let me screw this up, the warrior's prayer that we all have in our souls. In the days of Epic Fury, they were shooting, as we've talked about in this room, a lot of standoff weapons. Now we've switched and rolled, as I mentioned last week, to stand-in weapons. And behind each and every one of them are incredible maintainers and weapons builders who go out there and make sure these aircraft and their weapon systems are ready to go. These airplanes are so big that they're not in hangars. They're out in the cold, out in the snow, out in the rain. The bombs are being built outside for protection and to make sure that it's safe, and they do it 24/7, 365. It's not comfortable work, but when you go spend just a minute with these incredibly young Americans who are so motivated, you cannot come away from that exchange not being hopeful for America's future. It is simply awesome. And we hand these Americans, young Americans, incredible and weighty responsibility, and they deliver every single time. Quietly, with professionalism and humility, doing the things that we ask them to do. In conclusion, we will continue major combat operations. As the Secretary said, we continue to get busier. I know the Secretary and I share that we're incredibly proud of 2.8 million members of our joint force. I am personally, and we are personally grateful for the tenacity and professionalism of the brave men and women who serve inside STRATCOM, CENTCOM, SpaceCom, CyberCom, TRANSCOM, and the rest of the joint force. And I'll close where I started. I ask today that we remember those 6 fallen that came home. They represent the best of our nation. For those families that are feeling the pain, know that we are with you and will remain with you. May we always prove worthy of their sacrifice. And I'll turn it back over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll take a couple questions.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Given the updated degradation and strike target numbers you laid out, how close would you say we are towards achieving the president's objectives? And what is the end game of the operation without divulging any sensitive battle plans?
Well, we wouldn't want to set a definitive time frame on that, but as we've said, we're on plan. So we're looking at those metrics very closely, relaying that to the president and the national security team, but feel confident that as, again, we're more stand in means we're over the top, even further in, and we have even more of an exact sense of what we're striking and why, and even more dynamically, meaning because the intelligence improves, we're able to more quickly identify targets when they, let's say they come out of an underground facility where they've been hiding and able to strike it before it strikes or right after it shoots. But we're very much on plan, and that's why I want to speak to the American people here. You hear a lot of noise about widening or new missions or speculation about what we should or should not be doing. This is a clear set of objectives. The president has given us every capability we need to accomplish that. We've got the best in the world in uniform executing it on the ground. They believe in and are invested in this mission, and it will be at the president's choosing, ultimately, where we say, hey, we've achieved what we need to on behalf of the American people to ensure our security. So no time set on that, but we're very much on track. Absolutely. Yes, right here.
Good morning, Mr. Secretary. David Zier, Real America's Voice News. What countries have been the most cooperative with us, including the Gulf states, as Europe hedges? And I also wanted to ask you...
That's actually a good question.
The internet blackouts by the regime. It's been shut down for weeks. Is the U.S. military playing a role in, fighting against the regime, blocking VPN networks and satellites and other things? Is there a role for the U.S. military there?
Obviously, on the allies and partners side, Israel, from day one, has been an incredible and capable partner, willing and able. There's nothing like capabilities and partners that are able to use them. The Gulf states have stepped up incredibly. In fact, Iran's sort of reckless attempt to strike civilian infrastructure and other things has brought countries who maybe would have not been as all in as they are today squarely into our orbit. And we're proud to be defending with them, standing with them, you name it. UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and others who have been right there. And we're grateful for that kind of support. As far as the internet, we're watching the regime try to tighten its grip as much as possible. We're obviously taking countermeasures, many of which we can't talk about here, to ensure that messaging is delivered, not just to the Iranian people writ large, but to the right audiences, certain audiences that need to hear certain things about what their fate might look like or what their choices are. So even though that regime is trying really hard to ensure the world can't see, right? They want to put out fake AI-generated images, which, by the way, sometimes our press happens to fall for, like the Abraham Lincoln on fire and turning around. These AI-generated images are meant to make it look like something's happening when the exact opposite is. So they make up fake reports and fake images to lie to their own people to try to make it. But even then, their own people can barely receive a lot of those messages and communicate because of the blackout that they've imposed upon them. But we work around that for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. General, overnight, Iran launched missiles across the Gulf. They managed to hit the Saudi oil refinery on the Red Sea. What does it mean that they have that capability now, 3 weeks into the war? And, Mr. Secretary, you mentioned civilian infrastructure. Iran seems to be treating U.S. diplomatic outposts, embassies, consulates like they are legitimate hard targets in the region now. What is the Pentagon doing to, I guess, secure those assets, stop those attacks?
Absolutely.
Real quick before they answer this, we have well over 400 people in here between both the live streams. Make sure you guys hit that like button and double tap that screen if you're on the vertical side. Listen, you guys don't have to love what's happening here, but you guys can like it for me and what we do here. So thank you for that.
Thanks for the question on the missile strikes. As we said and have always said clearly, they came into this fight with a lot of weapons. This is why we continue to be as aggressive and assertive as we can against their ballistic missile capability, both their medium-range ballistic missile capability and their short-range missile capability. So we are continuing to hunt and find them and kill them, and we will continue to do so. So they still retain some capability. And we have layered defenses throughout the region that will allow us to protect those. And we're working with our partners across the Gulf region to help them improve any defensive capabilities that they may need.
To that point on capabilities, Iran's an energy-rich country, could be, should be. Instead, like so many other places driven by radical ideology, they've spent that money instead of investing in their people. That's why you had millions of Iranians protesting. It's because they felt like their quality of life didn't match what it could be or should be. And what was the Iranian state There's a reason we call Iran the #1 state sponsor of terrorism, because they took the money they make and they invest it in tunnels, and they invested in missiles, and they invested in launchers and UAVs, and we are destroying and degrading that in historic proportions. But it doesn't mean they won't still have some and try to hold people at issue, which is why we're fighting every single day to continue to compel. And you mentioned embassies and consulates. Unlike previous administrations, we are doubling and tripling down on ensuring that our people, regardless of their Department of War, Department of State, whatever they do, are secure in those facilities. And the best defense is a good offense. And so we're not afraid to go after and kill anybody, and we have a lot of them attempting to target our diplomatic facilities. Iran, we're not surprised that they would indiscriminately target, and we're still seeing that. Jerry.
As part of the justification for the war against Iran, the White House has laid out in fairly comprehensive fashion that the Iranian regime's 47 years of terrorism aimed at the U.S., including pointing to the IRGC's provision of weapons and EFPs to help kill Americans in Iraq. The Pentagon in 2019 assessed Iran was responsible for the deaths of at least 603 service members in Iraq, but there hasn't been a similar public accounting by Iran's role helping the Taliban in Afghanistan. And that also hasn't been part of the White House.
What's up, Danny? Good morning to you. Great to see you in the chat. Hopefully you're enjoying your thirsty Thursday morning.
House's public argument. I was wondering if you could speak to Iran's role in helping the Taliban during the war in Afghanistan. And Chairman, as you and the Secretary eloquently spoke about, 13 U.S. service members have been killed so far during Operation Epic Fury. I was wondering what lessons have been learned from those deaths, both from Iranian strikes, from an aircraft refueling accident. How are those lessons being applied to the current conflict, and how are those lessons going to be applied to a potential conflict in Indo-Pacific?
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. And it's true. In a town that can have a very short memory, President Trump does not. He remembers what this Iranian regime was founded on, what their declaration has been from the beginning: death to America, death to Israel. They've stated that. They've intended to, in every way, try to accomplish that, killing Americans in any theater they can, embassies for quite a long time. In Iraq, that was the deadliest weapon, was the EFP, the explosively formed penetrator. I was there when that tactic and technique started to emerge, and the realization was it wasn't just jihadis putting together 155 rounds daisy-chained. It was an entire state, a country with its apparatus able to mold steel in a way that was specifically designed to penetrate American armor and kill Americans. This was not, maybe we send them a couple of thoughts about how to build a bomb. This was Iran specifically passing technology and wherewithal and personnel into Iraq to kill Americans specifically. I know the number is said to be 600. A lot of us think it's higher than that, given the amount of capability they brought in. So they have been at war with us, whether we acknowledge it or not, for 47 years. The same goes in Afghanistan. Name the Islamist enemy, whether they are Sunni or Shia, because this is a Shia regime, Sunni or Shia, and Iran's been willing to harbor them as long as that group is willing to try to kill Americans. So the enemy of their enemy has been their friend as well in the Islamist world. So Iran, whether it's Iraq, whether it's Afghanistan, whether it's around the world, has been targeting Americans. And what they wanted in this context, and what President Trump would not tolerate, is a regime of that nature being closer and closer to nuclear capabilities, a capability they would have said they would want to use, and we ought to believe what our enemies say they would do if they got the most dangerous weapon in the world. So it's been across every theater that Iran's been a threat to America, and sometimes we have to remind folks of that, but thank goodness we have a commander-in-chief who, on behalf of this country, has internalized that and said, hey, we're going to do something about it.
Jerry, I do want to talk about the lessons learned question because it's important to me. I won't share particular tactical lessons, and the KC-135 incident is under investigation. But I do want to talk about how I think about this and how we think about it. And this is something that I'm pretty passionate about. I believe the Joint Force has to be a very fast learning organization. Early, often, and always. And so in each case, both at the strategic, operational, and tactical level, we've charged the Joint Force to look at themselves and say, what was our plan? Well, first, did we have a plan? Yes or no? The answer is always yes, because we plan for literally everything. Did we execute our plan? Yes or no? If we did it work? If not, why not? If we didn't execute our plan but did something better, what's the lesson learned associated with that? And then how do we quickly capture those lessons after every loss or every engagement and quickly adopt those lessons and then share them across the entirety of the Joint Force? And inside the Joint Staff, we've tasked our J7 Directorate under the lead of Lieutenant General Lazewski, a United States Marine, to be extremely entrepreneurial in harvesting and capturing those lessons in a proactive and not reactive way. In fact, we've got teammates from the J7 who are now spread out across the CENTCOM theater, both here in the States and forward, to ensure that in every opportunity we do not miss a chance to grab that lesson and quickly accelerate it into the practice that we adopt inside the joint force, so that if there's a loss or if there's something that we can learn from, that we learn it not only in the CENTCOM AOR, but we adapt it across all of the combatant commands, not just Indo-PACOM. And it's across all of the warfighting functions. I've asked them to look rigorously, to check our egos at the door, to remember this is about what's right, not who's right, and to be clinical around the way we look at lessons learned, because we owe it to the force to do that. Thanks for that question.
Absolutely. Brown jacket at the back.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Jonathan Dre with Roca Politics.
This is going to be the last question that I take.
As you said, at the end of this war, Iran will be without a missile or drone capability, a navy, or the ability to make nuclear weapons. Since the largest threat and sponsor of terror in the region will be incapacitated, are there plans to move assets and troops out of the Middle East? I guess in a perfect world, a year after the war has ended, what does the military presence in the Middle East look like compared to before the war?
Well, I appreciate the question. I do think when you address a real threat head on, it creates new options on the other side. Right? I think what President Trump refuses to do, which too often this town does, is just sit in the status quo. Oh, nobody can do about that. They've got too much capability. What if this happens? What if that happens? He instead says, what's in the interest of the American people? It's going to take some courage. It's going to take some capabilities. We're going to have to gather some forces there in order to do it. We're not going to tell people how many or how long or what we're willing to do or what we're not willing to do. But if you do that and do that decisively, then out the other end is a recognition that it opens the aperture of what's possible. I mean, President Trump did the same thing in creating an opportunity for the Abraham Accords. Now you've got a situation where a lot of those countries are coming alongside us, recognizing the threat of Iran. So I think our posture in the future will be based first and foremost on our own national security, power projection, the ability to defend our people and our interests. But no doubt, working alongside our partners, the president will look at what makes the most sense going forward. Appreciate that question. Yes, right here.
All right, no, that's it. That is it. We are done for the morning. Listen, that wraps it up. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you guys double tap that screen. If you're on the vertical side, hit that like button on the way out on the horizontal. Listen, hit that subscribe button too. This is what we do Monday through Friday, and we report world news, geopolitics, American news, American politics, and then we condense everything into a single hour, man. We don't sit here and go on and on for 8 hours straight, whatever. We condense everything. So anyways, much love, honor, respect, everybody. Stick around for the raid. We're going to be raiding you guys over to my friend's channel, Beth. She's live right now. She usually hosts like little panel streams or whatever. So go check her out and let her know that we're coming through with the Mike Ball raid. Anyways, much love, honor, respect, everybody. God bless everyone. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning for more of the world's madness. Until then, much love.
From the depths of darkness, a voice emerges. A host with a fire burns.